Good evening, council members. My name is Mike Mohill, and to all due respect, Mayor Devine, the city of Glendale is dead broke. Dead broke. We cannot afford a pay raise. We have $500 million to fix the crumbling Grayson Power Plant. We're going to get that money. We have over $440 million in unfunded just for the current retirees of the city of Glendale. We just had last week the city of Glendale talk with the Coalition for Better Government, and they're talking about the illegal transfer of electric money from GWP to the general fund in violation of the charter, Proposition 26, etc. And that money has to come somewhere. And they're talking about that about a $58 million give back from the city to the GWP. The city of Glendale is broke. And if all 5 of you council members decide to approve this MOU, people in the viewing audience, remember when they're up for re-election, they don't care about you. They only care about the city employees. Yes, these police and firemen, they're good people, but can you imagine they get 90% of their last year's salary as their pension for life? Now, who in the private industry gets 90% for life? Think about it. If they're making $100,000 as the last year, they get 90% of $100,000 as their pension for life. Where do you find that? Read about it in the Los Angeles Times. CalPERS is broke, it's corrupt, it's irresponsible, and if this city council goes ahead and gives these, don't get me wrong, I respect our police and firemen, but if they think they're not getting enough money, please go to work for San Bernardino, Santa Ana, Vallejo, because these cities all have the best employees that money could buy. And then they file for bankruptcy. Thank you.
Mr. Cho, would you explain the exception to the in the MOU?
Yes, ma'am. There were 2 items that were featured in the MOU. One dealt with the item that Mr. Mohill had referenced by way of the challenge to the general fund transfer. If in fact the long-standing voter-approved pre-Prop 26 existing general fund transfer of electric revenues that has been part of the city's revenue stream going back to the 1940s, if that ultimately is determined to be unlawful, then there is a reopener in the police MOU to meet and confer on that item. We have to defer to city attorney in terms of what the status of our case is and what will go forward. I would submit to you, however, that the police department that we have, the relative safety that this community enjoys is a function of the collaboration between our residents and our police officers. And you see that by way of the rankings as one of the most safe communities, mid-sized cities, not just in California or the region, but the entire nation. And for a city surrounded on 3 sides by the 2nd largest city in the entire United States, and yet we can compare our safety numbers with bedroom communities that don't have nearly the challenges that we have. I think that's a credit to our community, a credit to our police force, and the partnership that they all enjoy. And that comes with hiring the right people, as you had indicated and as council had indicated last time. Mr. Mohill's talk is quite cheap. And I think when you want to compare apples to apples with the San Bernardinos, Stocktons, Vallejos of the world, the comparison to Glendale just isn't there. You are not broke, but we are fiscally prudent, watching every last contract.
I don't want to beat a dead horse, but this is being dictated by the market. That's the market for police officers, and good police officers in particular. And let's remember that at the end of the expiration of the 3-year contract, our officers are still likely to be below the market for the market value for their services. So by no means are we, blazing. We're not setting the heights of the standard for pay at all. Considering all these things that the city manager said, you can't just have a good community and good businesses and safety without a good police department. So we need to keep all these 3 parts of the formula together in play at all times in order for us to remain one of the safest cities in the state.
So do we have a,
Yeah, I just have a comment and a question for the city manager. So I think we're trying to get, just for the public to know, we're trying to get our police officers to today's average, not the height of the market, today's average in 3 years. We're not getting them to today's average today. We're trying to get them to today's average in 3 years. But my question for city managers, I don't know if you know about this or not, but I lived up in Northern California. I know, I'm very well familiar with City of Vallejo and Stockton, and no offense to them, but Glendale is not comparable to them. But do we know the rate of their police officers, the salary that they're getting, and in San Bernardino, for example, compared to our city, are we really have a difference between what we're paying and Vallejo pays or San Bernardino pays?
Post bankruptcies for those communities, it's probably going to be less than what we pay, but what got them in trouble was the higher salaries and was the assortment of benefits that were conferred upon them. So whereas you have for your classic members, a 3 at 50 formula that you offered and now have reformed that as part of PEPRA, that number has dropped down, so it's become a less lucrative benefit, a more sustainable benefit. Those cities not only had the 3 at 50, they would have enhancements that would allow for pension spiking. They had enhancements that would allow for greater inclusion of other types of pays into that pension formula. They had the full boat retiree medical for their employees. And not that retiree medical is not something that everyone would love. It's that holy grail that everyone would chase, but it's not sustainable. Glendale historically has been a very fiscally conservative community. That tradition's been carried on by this city council. And to Mr. Sinanian's comments, your principles, you actually articulate every year as part of your budget, your principles of compensation management, whereby we pay the average. And in good years, that's good for us because it acts as a restraint so that we don't set the market. But in bad years, it means that we have to keep up with the market. We pay the average and expect above average folks across all departments. And it's all predicated on our ability to pay. And you saw that in the tough times, in collaboration with the associations Mr. Mohill maligns, we cut costs. We increased PERS cost sharing. We dropped bodies. We actually implemented voluntarily, I have to say with the associations, pay reductions. So to the extent that this is a business, it's a business of government, but it's still a business, and you have acted in a business-like fashion in collaboration with your labor partners, again, the comparisons to the Stocktons, Vallejo, San Bernardinos, et cetera, really stop there.